Hello everybody, this is Ahmed Naga. I'm a vascular consultant in Alexandria University, Egypt. I'm greatly delighted today to have with me Mr. Andrew Granham. He was a vascular surgeon, he's a vascular consultant in Black Country Vascular Unit, and he's currently the president of the Vascular Society of Great Britain and Ireland, and also he is the head of School of Surgery in the West Midlands. Hello.
Thank you very much for inviting me here this week. It's a great pleasure to come and talk at the meeting.
I assume this is not the first time for you in Egypt, isn't it?
I was in Egypt last year at Parva, which we had a great session there as well.
I hope you enjoy your time again this time out. So in the next few minutes, we're gonna touch base one of the important aspects in the vascular training, especially in the UK. So, as a vascular surgeon and one of the key players in the vascular surgery training across the UK, what do you think is the single most important goal that the vascular training has succeeded to accomplish during the last decade?
So I think over the last decade, we've seen vascular surgery in the UK go from being part of general surgery having a specialist vascular training program. So we've now changed the whole structure of training. So although we do 1 year of general surgery, the rest is now a 5-year program in vascular surgery, and that's allowed us to introduce a structured endovascular as well as open vascular surgery program.
So secondly, I'm not sure that the NHS got the chance to export, if you can say, this experience and this training in other parts of the world.
So, yeah, that's a good question. I think the surgical colleges are quite good, and I do some work for the Edinburgh College.
Okay.
And over the last 2 years, I've been helping colleagues in Hong Kong.
Okay, interesting.
Do exactly the same as we did in the UK over the last 10 years, and separate a structured training program for vascular surgeons, because in Hong Kong, like the rest of the world, they've seen vascular become much more specialised, but haven't had that structured training. And we've now worked with colleagues there to look at an examination at the end of a program. And I've had a very good meeting recently out in East Africa, in Kenya, with colleagues from St Thomas's, where we've gone to help 2 colleagues in Kenya who are the only vascular surgeons in Kenya, look at a structured training program there for East Africa. And it's very interesting to see the different environments and how the team resources are different.
Yeah. So another question is, if you could name like 2 challenges the vascular training is facing currently and still need to work on, what would they be?
So I think one of the big challenges that we have is, as a lot of our work has become more endovascular, 10 years ago the challenge was getting endovascular training. I think the real challenge now is in open surgical training, and we still need to be experts in open surgery. And how do we do that when the case numbers are reducing? And I think we've got to develop some open modelling simulation in the same way as we have for endovascular training in order to deliver that expertise.
Yes. And I assume the IR training does not include any surgical training. Does it?
So most of our interventional radiologists in the UK do very little surgical training. Some start with a foundation surgical background, but the IR training program and radiology has now changed, so they take people at a much earlier stage. Radiology in the UK used to take people who had done some surgery or some medicine beforehand, but now you can go straight into straight into radiology, and then they choose interventional radiology at a later stage. So most have not had any surgical training there.
So lastly, the crucial problem is that the NHS is a bit overwhelmed now. The training system is very competitive. So as a vascular surgeon, what do you think personally when you compare surgeons, trainees in the training and those not in the training, although they are having like the same path, heading to be a consultant at one day, and those who have finished that training outside UK, for example in India or in Egypt? What do you think are the main differences?
So I think the UK has an advantage in that if you get onto the structured training programme, there's a year-to-year assessment of progress. It's against a set curriculum, and therefore we can measure where people are in the system. We have structured work-based assessments for each of the components of vascular training, whereas I think elsewhere that's not so structured, and it depends on individual case volumes, individual centres. So there are some real advantages about being in the same centre all the time, because people get to know you. You may get to do more cases, but then you don't see the variety of practice. In the UK, we expect our trainees to rotate to a different unit every year to see how different people practice.
But I mean, towards the end of the training, people who are in the training sometimes find it difficult because they didn't have much experience in specific areas. For example, maybe in venous, maybe in aortic surgery, because depends where did we have this training. Even after the centralization, still some centers are pro-Indo and some centers are pro-open. So how is the NHS dealing with this problem?
Yeah, well, I think for in the NHS training scheme, because of the rotational nature, you spend a year or so in each unit, so there's an opportunity to balance that. And I guess that's one of the advantages of having that structured training programme. So in the UK, each of the specialty training programmes has a training programme director who is cited on the logbook of the trainee, and they're cited on the strengths of different units within their geography. So you can make sure people are placed in different units when there are gaps in their training. We also have the opportunity in the UK to have something called out-of-programme training. So if you work in a region where, for instance, a particular procedure isn't preferred, or a group of procedures, you can spend a year away from your training programme in a different unit in the UK to learn that. I had the great privilege of doing that with the Leicester group when I was training, because in the West Midlands where I trained, we had very little endovascular training at that stage. So you had to really go out of the region to learn that. But of course things have changed now, and endovascular surgery is pretty well represented everywhere, and the challenge is reversed, as we said earlier, where we now have to find units where you can establish an open practice, an open training.
Interesting. Thank you very much, and I had the pleasure to meeting you today, and I hope you find our meeting fruitful and you enjoy the 3 days in Egypt.
It's great to be here. It's a very exciting program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.